All right, it's talk time now. Key players in Nigeria's oil-rich Niger Delta have demanded that the region be included in the sharing and ownership of oil blocks in the country.
And this was among the 16 demands made on President Muhammadu Buhari at a crucial meeting in Abuja. The meeting is a call to end the restiveness in the region.
It is the first meeting between Niger Delta stakeholders and the presidency in this dispensation, coming after the resurgence of militancy in the region had greatly affected Nigeria's earnings. It is a convergence in numbers on the villa, consisting of traditional rulers, elders of thought, governors of the Niger Delta states, and personalities of influence in the Niger Delta struggle. President Buhari's meeting with these leaders is designed to enable him learn firsthand what exactly constitutes the grievances of the Niger Delta, which has led to the resurgence of militancy under his watch. He is presented with a list of demands, with some being grievances which have not been addressed by previous governments. The stakeholders, for instance, are asking for more funding for the Ministry of the Niger Delta and demand that the headquarters of some international oil companies be domiciled in the region rather than in Lagos or in some worst-case scenarios abroad.
These IOCs have their headquarters somewhere in Lekki or Abuja. This is not right because even the pay-as-you-earn tax is not coming to the region. The workers, nobody is engaged locally there, and they just come and harvest and go away.
Presence of the military in the Niger Delta is also an issue, but not for reasons many have adduced. Stakeholders are not asking for withdrawal of troops from the region, but from communities they occupy.
I don't think that our elders are asking for the military to be withdrawn from the Niger Delta because that will create chaos.
No.
What they request is that military presence or military occupation of communities should not be. But the military presence will have to be there to ensure that we're able to attend to all forms of criminality.
This is but the first in a series of dialogue with government, and stakeholders are expectant that subsequent engagements will devolve into real negotiations about what in terms of development they want for the Niger Delta.
The Minister of Petroleum made this possible and was quite happy with him. So the President was very happy that somebody made this possible for him to address the people of the Niger Delta.
For now, the Niger Delta stakeholders are pleased that their presentations have been well received by the President. Tai Amodu, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, that's your background to the next issue we're looking at, the FG Niger Delta stakeholders meeting that has finally taken off. Well, joining us now is a coordinator, Nigeria in the Eyes of the South-South Forum, Presido Gomorai. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Also joining us from Port Harcourt is the Secretary General, Ijo Youth Council, Bristol Lagbaria Emmanuel. And also joining us via Skype is Chris Ekio. Good morning to you all, and thanks for joining us on the show. Okay, let's begin with...
All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and on this segment, we are discussing the Niger Delta and issues coming out from the 16 points or 16 demands given to the presidency or the federal government by elders of the Niger Delta region that met with the president earlier, or met with the presidency a few days ago. We have President Gomorai with us right here. Let me start with you. Now, there has been a long-standing demand for this negotiation before now. Now that it has held, in fact, as of yesterday, we heard another negotiation was still ongoing and all of that. Now, from that window, how satisfied are you that finally the elders are discussing with the federal government?
I think that's the appropriate word, satisfied. For once, we've seen the government giving the audience, our people, to present at least some of the areas we think need to be addressed. Okay. So it's a good development, and we employ the government of the day to honestly look at the issues. Agreed. We get from some forums comments made about certain issues raised, but they are germane issues. Germane, because it's unfortunate as an oil producing area. I could tell you I come from the Ijaw axis. apart from 2 or 3 communities, no bank in any of the communities. No banks. And so you need to leave your environment, get to either an urban area like Warri, Ughelli, Port Harcourt to make anything transaction in banks. And you know it goes a long way to affect the economic situation of the people. So it's unfortunate we have people who are agitating with violence, but some of us are being in agitation by their comments, postings, and so it's a welcome development if the government give them an audience and they look at the issues and address them frontally. That's
a very worrisome thing you just mentioned there about the fact that there are no banks in that part. It's amazing. And let me bring in Chris Sekio. Chris, you were part of these negotiations, and I believe you will be part of the future negotiations, that will be carried out every now and again. What exactly are your impressions about how this meeting went? And yes, you did go to the president or the presidency with a 16-point shopping list and an additional 5 points after, right after that meeting. Talk to us about the high points.
All right, thank you. The most important part of the whole of this news all over the place is that the presidents are just taking the first step into what is expected of him by the Niger Delta people. And all those demands are not new. There have been things that have been on the shelf of government for as long as I can remember. What the high point should be is how the presidency reacts and responds to these issues. The reason for that is that back and forth from the 1999 to date, Niger Delta elders have continued to meet with whichever person that became president. We're where we are because most times when they receive these demands or requests, as it were, they put it on the shelf and they just take the eyes of it and try to see if they can pat us on the back. But for the PANDEF, the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, what we intend to do is to see that there's a joint committee between the federal government's own team and the Niger Delta leadership to find a lasting solution to what it is. The 16-point agenda that was presented before the president are stuffs that were embedded in the previous demands of the Ogomodia report, the Ogoni Bill of Rights, the Kayama Declaration, the Niger Delta Technical Committee report, and indeed even in the Amnesty Proclamation. So we just captured it at the Working Committee, Central Working Committee, to ensure that the president can look at it and come up with its own end of the team. I don't expect that the Minister of Petroleum, who had been able to broker this meeting, should probably work with the federal government and ensure that we have a robust team on that part that can implement some of these demands. The beauty of what we're doing here is not that we're asking for new things or impossible things. It's just that we're saying that there should be equity in response to what's happening now in Niger Delta. If you take a classical look at even what has gone so far in terms of budgetary allocation on capital projects, in terms of approvals, in terms of funding, you'll find out that it is skewed to exclude the Niger Deltas. And that's why the elders and people of the region said, no, this government needs to take the Niger Delta seriously.
Okay, let me bring in Bristol Alagbaria Emmanuel here. He is the Secretary General of the Youth Council. Bristol, it's good to have you join us. Now, in the eyes of Nigerians, the call for this negotiation was a product of the recent bombing by the Niger Delta Avengers, which they say, okay, we have demands before to present before the government, and we in the 16-point demand table before the president, we see demands way back, so many long-standing demands that are not even immediate. Is it a way of the Niger Delta elders taking advantage of this to reach out to government?
Well, as you rightly stated, that is an old, long demand, and it's just that the government over time has not taken the Niger Delta people seriously, and that's why it has lingered till this moment. But you also rightly know that the people at the forefront of this agitation are youths. In as much as we are comfortable with the fact that our leaders are there discussing, but we have some reservations. Because one, the youths for which they have negotiated, because we are the custodians of the future, we are not adequately involved in this process. With all due respect to my leader, Chris Sekio, he is part of the process and we're very happy and comfortable with him, but we feel that the youth should have, to a great extent, constitute a good percentage of the delegation that should go there. Because if we're part of the foundational process in this negotiation, we can now sustain it after tomorrow. One of the reasons why it has lingered to this moment is that in between this negotiation process, the government has so decided to deal with individuals rather than those core issues, like the amnesty program, which is also one of the means for them to achieve peace in the region, of which thereafter there should be adequate developmental plan, and that was ignored. So the government relied solely on the temporal peace that the amnesty achieved, and now jettisoning the long-time peace that the people needed, which has to do with development. So for us to move forward, the government must, as a matter of urgency, look into the 16-point agenda and start implementing them. And I also want to submit that they must, just as they are doing in the Northeast, bring in international agency to be part of this process, because anything that affects Nigeria affects the entire world. And Niger Delta issue has grown up stage that.
Okay, we'll need to take a quick break. Okay, now you are the Joy Youth Council, and you touched on a very, very vital point there. You know, the fact that the young people, the youth, who are actually the ones who carry out this violence and bombings and all of that, were not carried on or carried along in this negotiations. What, impact do you think this will have on the implementation of, this different items that, the Niger Delta stakeholders have actually demanded? Does it mean all of this may just be dead on arrival?
No, actually, we've had issues of mistrust amongst leaders. If you check among within the delegation, you see former governors, former assembly members, former House of Rep members, and people that went there, they have led in one form of governance prior to this time. But we ask ourselves the question, before this time, why haven't they done anything or advanced the cause of the Niger Delta people? Probably when they were comfortable, they moved to the trend. But now we've come back to status quo again. So we're feeling that they must bring in new people into this process. Some of them have genuine intention, but I know that there are some persons that might be going there because of their business interests.
Okay. All right, Bristol.
So they must, as a matter of urgency, involve the youths that bears the brunt. Because today, all the attacks and everything, the destruction, the youths and the old people suffer. Okay. But the youths are at the forefront of this agitation. Definitely, they must be involved adequately.
All right, Bristol, we'll come back to you on this, Presido. The point raised by Bristol now, when you look at it, from those who are not in the Niger Delta, who are not from the Niger Delta, someone is going to say this is part of the bane of the problem. When the committee is being set, the struggle of who to be a member of the committee, who should be represented, who should be seeing the president, doesn't all of this lead to acrimony between...
I want to say it's natural. He has a very good point there. Yes. But except we don't want to be honest to ourselves. As a key player too, almost everybody there mean well for Niger Delta. Let's be very, very honest. There have been problems all over the world, and when the issues are being resolved, you find people with age, most of the time, playing the role. Why? Because they can easily absorb. You see, youth, yes, Dr. Chris Secure is a youth leader. He's there. We have a lot of other people. The IOIC president was a member. He's a member, sorry. That's Engineer Odeng Seraduri. He participated in that forum. Normally, there must be a platform for us to have agitations and arguments. And that's the beauty of democracy. He has a good point. But the beauty is, the person's there. To me, by virtue of what I do, I think they mean well for us. Because if somebody was a former governor at that time as governor, we don't know the circumstances that led to him being governor. After leaving government, he now realized and see the truth. He will be a better person to appreciate appropriate issues better. So it's not an issue of wisdom, age, then you need the youths too. They're there. You can't get only youths. So I think it's a very good idea, and we should give the government of the day some kind of pass mark for even giving us the platform.
Cut them some slack, like you would say.
So this, I think, we must be very patient, and we must use a higher level of wisdom.
Yes.
Because we've come a long way. Some of us went through, so it takes all of us to really go. So the youth, you give the people there some chance.
Okay, so let's even look at some of the demands, if we can itemize a few of them as much as we can. The host communities is asking, you know, for the stripping of state governors of the 13% derivation fund and transferring it to the host communities.
That would be very genuine if it's allowed.
But in the course of these negotiations, we hear that that particular item was actually jettisoned. It wasn't really touched.
Good. Even if it's not touched, gradual. If we, out of 16 points, if the government of the day could embrace 10, you see that there will be some transformation, a change in attitude. We only need some change to now move this country forward. We all believe in the nation.
Okay, Akio should be able to actually respond to this particular...
He was there.
Yes, I mean, he was there. Akio, what's your take? Well, you are in the best position to tell us exactly how, you know, what went on as far as the issue of 13% derivation being stripped from the state governors and handed over to the host communities.
All right, thank you very much. In laying down the 16-point agenda, the Central Working Committee and indeed PANDEV had in mind, excuse me, the fact that we didn't need to start right now talking about issues that will require legislation to address the unrest that is in the region. So we had looked at the quick wins and the long-term issues and I placed them at par in discussing with the president. I can tell you that there are a lot of contentious issues about what the Niger Delta people want. The reason for that is because of our heterogeneity in terms of tribe and people and state creation. But it would be unfair to say that, for me, the number of persons who even went to see the president was, for me, too much. We don't need more than 10, 15 leaders representing the cadres, the elders, traditional rulers, and youth to talk to Mr. President. The rest of us were just a support service team. So I need to put that clear that there's never been a team this robust that has visited any president to discuss the issues of Niger Delta. And this team did not just took his demand there. These were demands by the various ethnic groups, various states that were collated and grouped into the 16 point. Now the 13% derivation is an act of parliament. If you need to strip that out from the state as it is now to the communities, you need to make another law, and it takes a process. And we are saying we can't wait anymore. You need to start now and get these things done now. For me, my opinion, I have said that we do not need all these agencies and interministerial committees to do what we have to do. If you walk into Abuja, work is ongoing. About 200 billion has been appropriated as capital project to develop Abuja. The entire South states get like 36 billion. Now that will make work impossible even if you create 100 commissions to deal with the issue. So I see a case of political will to deal with the 13%, deal with the infrastructure issues, the economic issues, and the security issues. For instance, people have misrepresented our position who said, stop the militarization of the Niger Delta. We're not saying that the soldiers, there are barracks all over the Niger Delta. Nobody has said you should remove the barracks. There are military bases at locations where there are operations. What we are saying is the situation where the military occupies a place and intimidate the people and reduce them to a phobia of sorts of their own army that's supposed to protect them. Community occupation is what we're saying should be reduced. Then the issue of community ownership, which now will address the 13% they are talking about, is clear. We are saying that you can't come to the Niger Delta, take away oil, without talking to the people from whose soil the oil has been taken from. Use the resources to develop other regions, not even at par with the same place where the oil is coming from. So the communities are saying we are excluded. And we are saying in this committee that government must get the multinationals to stay in those same communities so they can feel the impact and they'll be forced to respond proactively. Governance issue about oil governance needs to be looked at from the point where communities have a sense of ownership. It doesn't have to be 13%, it can be 13%, it can be the 10% equity that we proposed in 2009 in the JV, where communities have a 10% equity. And that money will be used for infrastructure improvement of those communities where oil has been taken from. Now, we need to be careful about what everybody seems to be talking. What we have done at the PANDEV is to collate all the points of agreement of the various people of the Niger Delta and make it a 16-point agenda. And the additional 5 that came on board were oversight at the time were collected and have been added. What I want Niger Deltans and Nigerians to be wary of is what the government will make of this meeting. I have said it is just a starting point. It is not a solution. In-depth discussion have not resumed. It has to start, and it has to start now.
Okay.
All right. Bristol, let me come to you on this. Now, you have expressed your reservation as to the composition of the delegation to the president. Now, we know that at the ongoing discussion, we heard there were still bombings going on from some of the militants in the Niger Delta. Could that be one of the reasons why we still had negotiations ongoing and still have bombings going on in parts of the Niger Delta?
Well, you know that negotiation is a continuous process. There are some individuals, there are some groups that may not be comfortable with the process. There are some persons that may be disgruntled with the way and manner it is being initiated. But I feel that with time, as they deepen the discussion, as we see the sincerity from the part of the government, some persons will fall into place. If we want to retrospect, during the amnesty program, when Mr. President, late President Yadra proclaimed the amnesty, some youth group weren't interested in participating in this process. Some elders, stakeholders, youth leaders had to go and discuss and explain to them in a term that they can understand. And as they saw the benefits, the collective benefits for the people, they all keyed in. I also feel as we progress with this process, other youth group, other arms group will also key into this process. But we should also know that there are some groups that are carrying out this attack for their selfish and criminal interests. So those categories of youths or groups might not want to give in, because in this attack they make so much money. And they might also be into bunkering or other illegal activities, so they might not stop. But the government should not be discouraged by that. But we know that as we progress along the process, everybody will fall into place by God's grace.
All right, let's thank you, Bristol. We'll still come back to this. Let's go on a break and then we come back on the discussion. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's talk time, and we're looking at the FG Niger Delta negotiations already ongoing. Our guest in the studio is Presido Gomorai, coordinator of Nigeria in the eyes of the South-South. We also have Chris Akio as part of the negotiations going on, and Bristol Alagbaria Emmanuel is of the Ijaw Youth Council. Thank you once again, gentlemen. Now, Gomorai. Yes. President Buhari has said that there are no quick fixes, and all of these items that the Niger Delta stakeholders have listed out can really not be achieved if there is no peace in the region. Yeah. And in addition to that, he has said what he wants to do is to tackle the root cause of the problem in the Niger Delta. Have we even been able to identify exactly what the root cause is, so that we can move on from there?
I started with very minute, but you said it's serious issues of economy. If you have oil from that area and you extract oil and it gives us this glory, in less than 10 years we built a new capital called Abuja. It's from oil. We must not deceive ourselves. So in that, we are thinking that there's some, I think there was a plan. Besides the state capitals and some urban areas in Niger Delta, some other communities will have been built up as urban areas. None like that. None. I was shocked. I got to Amabulu. It's a community in Bayelsa. No civilization, but they create so much. And I asked His Royal Highness, he said they live on the will of God, and no medical center, no presence of federal government. Amabulu, the same thing you call Pretorbeni. Sometimes we will call them, it's like we are talking from the middle. They are real. And what makes Nigerian proud, tick, comes from those areas. It's unfortunate. Then, we cannot rule out the fact that some of our own brothers will be privileged to be in position. And sometimes, some of us, like me, I grew up in the north. I call myself Nigerian without border. My first visit to my community made me change my attitude towards Nigeria. I was shocked. I was shocked. Even at that, I come from Ikise Patani. It's still more civilized than some other places I go visit. Some areas you go by boat. So you see, the government had to pick up the key issues. The oil companies operating, they all reside here in Lagos.
Yes, one of the items on the list that the
if they can
IOCs
relocate to some
should actually
communities
relocate
closer to the area, they were able to engage the people. One, they may not be oil workers from the communities, but they will benefit in terms of economic facilities, maybe supply things and the rest. But what do you find? They all come Mondays, they come in by helicopters, choppers to the sites, they take off on Friday. One. Two, even the social activities. These guys make use of our girls. They don't marry them. I'm very sorry, but these are the facts. And you see, so you come from an area that gives so much for the country, and little or nothing comes there besides the state capitals. And there's one thing I observed. We must be very proud of ourselves. Check our state capitals. You check Asaba, Benin, Warri. Warri is not a state capital, but it's an urban area. You still see some state capitals in the country not comparable to, despite the level.
Those places.
So it tells you our leaders are, I must be very honest, we have leaders who are committed, but the challenges are so much that sometimes they now mellow down.
All right, let me come to Chris in here. Chris, at the negotiation, we see, okay, what we see now is this 16-point agenda, as you call it, 16-point agenda plus 5. Because
yes, plus 5,
plus
indeed.
5. Now, in all of this, there was no itemization of the commitment from the Niger Delta in the ongoing process. What they are going to do as in return for all of these demands. Why is it like that?
Well, first, you must agree that the Niger Delta has been committed to itself all these years. And that's the reason why people can come, explore oil, get the environment desolate, and walk away. And it's only recently that the agitations begin to take a different dimension. Let me paint a scenario for you. You wake up in the morning, you're going up as a child, your parents just walk into the waterside, put a basket out there, they get some nice fishes, they come home, they prepare for you a meal, put some cassava on the floor, gari is available, yam is available, plantain is doing well, and we eat healthily. We manage ourselves with our little fish farm life. And one day, somebody comes with a very big equipment, and it tells you they're bringing civilization to you, and you're happy. Then he puts a barbed wire across you and some desolate land that is there, transform that forest into some kind of little haven, and gas flare. And then in a couple of weeks, you see there's electricity, there's water, there's gas flaring. And after some months, you find out that your own plants can't do well. Your parents go to the waterside, they can't find fish. That's the price we have paid in the last 50 years for oil. Oil that is taken from our backyard has destroyed the entire estuary. We can't fish inland. We have to go high up there in the sea. We do not have the resources because we're not empowered by the economy of oil to own trawlers, fishing trawlers to go into the sea. Unfortunately, even the struggling young men, people like us who have been able to acquire a few barges and all that to do oil and gas, the military takes it and say they are for bunkering and they destroy it. So it is difficult for any average Ijaw man or any other man to do oil and gas business without being attributed to bunkering. So you have the Yorubas,
yeah,
the Igbos,
Chris,
the Hausas.
Chris, let me put you on hold a little here. The companies have also said that there has been the issue of sabotage at the time, bunkering from youth in some instances, as the case may be, illegal bunkering, all of those things. So when you check both sides, all of these things happen. But the point there is, we are here where we are right now. Things have gone bad. What commitment is the Niger Delta, apart from the fact that, yeah, the oil is there under your foot, under the soil and all of that, what commitment are the Niger Delta putting into this negotiation?
That's what we're telling you, that the Niger Delta is not a separate entity, it is Nigeria. And we are saying that Nigeria needs to treat Nigeria as Nigeria. And the people of Nigeria who are from the Niger Delta region are saying that we are ready to cooperate with government to ensure that the stability, that the oil continue to run to take care of the rest of Nigeria, and but it has to be done in a standard that is approved by international operational standards, as is found in Aberdeen, in Scotland, in Texas. All these people have oil in China, in Dubai, and then oil shouldn't be a cost to our people. And we're saying, look, government, we are part of you. The oil is our oil, the Nigerian oil, and if you must take it, then take it in a manner that we are not put on at risk to say that in another 30, 20 years, there'll be nothing. Go to Loibri and so many other communities. After the oil is gone, there is nothing to write about. And we are saying, look, time is it that if you must do things, you must do it rightly. And that's part of being committed, saying that we need to protect the environment of Nigeria. People sometimes tend to think that the Niger Delta is a different entity. No, it is Nigeria, and it has to be treated like Nigeria. And what we are saying is that we are ready to support government, so long government is willing to take us on board to travel along with. But what has happened in the last 50 years is that you are excluded. Even when they bring development to you, they choose what you get. You don't make an input in it. They can sit in Abuja or in Lagos and take a decision that you need boreholes. And one of the governors asked, Governor asked, he said, why put a borehole? No, I mean, one of the governors in the meeting said, why put a borehole where a local government already put a borehole? I am also putting a borehole. And the oil company comes and put a borehole. So what we are saying is that we need to now work in synergy. The federal government, the communities, the oil companies, the state governments must come to the table and look at development blueprints where you have turnkey projects that we know this is what the federal government will do, this is what state government will do, this is the role of the community. That's the kind of thing we are trying to fashion out. It's not that it's not there. It has been there, but it has been politicized so that you have what they call the GMOU. The oil companies take a few elites in the community and skew documents for them to sign and give them patriotism and run along. Look, there are oil companies in Niger Delta that have airstrip at their base just to move people in the morning from Lagos to operation, and then in the evening take them back. The cost for flight alone is enough to transform that community.
Absolutely. Okay. Akio, let me bring in Bristol. Bristol, I'm sure you would want to respond to some of the things or issues that Chris Akio has just talked about in response to the question as to the commitment that the people of the Niger Delta themselves will be giving or making to the federal government to ensure that this issues are actually ironed out in such a way that progress will really come to the Niger Delta. Of course, the president has said no quick fixes and nothing can really happen without peace.
Well, it's a natural thing. Nobody steals from his or pot. Like they say, the Niger Delta terrain is difficult for development. But yet it is not difficult for them to lay pipeline across our communities. So let us take this scenario that along the same pipeline, they also lay parallel to that pipeline a smaller pipeline that will carry pipe-borne water and electricity. In short, they should put everything together. So when you vandalize a pipeline, you vandalize both the water pipeline and the electricity pipeline. You see that in as much as we benefit in the process, there is this collaboration, there is work in progress. Naturally, there will be peace. But when you exclude the people, you turn them from stakeholders to mere spectators, then there will be some form of agitation. Take, for example, look at Bonny now. As big as Bonny, Bonny is an island. But Bonny does not have an emergency exit point in case of any emergency. There's an airstrip in Bonny. Only the multinationals have access to this airstrip. The indigenous doesn't have access to this airstrip. For you to travel to Bonny, the adverse effect of this operation of these oil companies, that there is a whole lot of insecurity. Bonny people can't even travel home. And you're saying that they should be happy and they should be comfortable. Look at erosion. The sea bank is washing off. Look at vessels everywhere. But Bonny people seem not to participate. In short, I can categorically say that a Bonny man does not even own a tugboat. If you investigate, a Bonny man does not own a tugboat. And look at the wealth in Bonny. So when you seclude the people, they are not participating. Definitely there will be some form of agitation. But if we're all working together, that the people of Niger Delta could have opportunities to participate fairly, and they can have access to gainful employment, then you see that everybody will work together. Just as they have demanded that the oil companies operating in the region must bring their corporate head offices in Niger Delta. We have some situation whereby they deceive the people that they have their head offices here, but the MD's office, the procurement office, the human resources office, they're all in Lagos. Even the accounts office, they're all in Lagos. They did little or no work, as they carried little or no work in our region. Yet we don't have access to these opportunities.
Okay.
So that
Bristol
has been the cause of this agitation.
Okay,
But
let's hold on, Bristol. We'll have to take a very quick break, commercial break, and return.
All right, if you're watching now, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. And on this segment, we are discussing the Niger Delta. Elders put forward about 16 demands before the president earlier in a negotiation process. 16 plus 5.
Plus 5. Okay.
Now, let's give you a background to some of this. One of the 16 demands made by some stakeholders of Niger Delta region who recently met with the president is more funding for the Niger Delta Ministry, established by late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua in 2008.
Now, in 2010, the federal government created the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, and made it a parastatal under the Niger Delta Ministry, charged with the responsibility of developing the oil-rich region. Over the years, the ministry and its parastatal have received and are still receiving budgets and allocations from the federal government. Let's see some of the figures that have been allocated to the Niger Delta Ministry since 2010. A budget of 240 billion naira was approved for the Niger Delta Development Commission in 2010.
And President Goodluck Jonathan then made a proposal of 236 billion naira for the commission, but the National Assembly decided to increase the budget by 4 billion naira. In 2011, President Jonathan presented a 249 billion naira NDDC budget proposal to the National Assembly for approval, but the National Assembly passed a budget of 261 billion naira, a figure also higher than that proposed by the president.
Now, this particular budget was the source of much controversy as allegations of fund diversion trailed some politicians and some top officials of the NDDC at that time. The National Assembly in 2012 approved for the NDDC a budget of 250 billion naira for the year. And for 2013, the National Assembly approved the sum of 316 billion naira as the budget of the Niger Delta Development Commission. Now, the National Assembly approved a budget of 323 billion for the NDDC for the year 2014, and this particular budget is the biggest till date.
Now, the National Assembly passed a budget of 230 billion naira for the NDDC for the 2015 fiscal year. On June the 23rd, the 8th National Assembly passed a budget of 241 billion naira for the NDDC for 2016, implying an 18.9 billion naira reduction from the initial budget of 260 billion naira earlier presented by President Buhari. But the mind-boggling question is, how will the 16-point shopping list impact on the life of average Niger Deltan in the south of Nigeria?
That is the question. You know, since to a very large extent, many people believe that all the billions that we've heard about over the years, you know, have hardly done much,
anything,
you know, for
to
the
justify
of,
any more being pumped into the region.
Yes, we're seeing the figures. One fact I know, except we don't want to be honest, if you ask the NDDC, actually did they get this bulk that we approved?
The answer may be no.
No.
Okay.
1, 2. You see, the issues, the characters involved too, they mean well, government too mean well. But we see elements of, you know, typical Nigerian. We can't deny the facts. Everybody is claimed to be a saint, but we all know that we have areas where there are problems. Constructing a kilometer road in Niger Delta area is like putting about 5 here outside Niger Delta. So the cost is high because you have to treat the road. To prepare it, you have to excavate and pour. So a lot of things going. And that's why you see figures, you'll be wondering. The East-West Road, we all know, is not yet to be completed. It's still ongoing, but it had gone a long way to save a lot of us. Some of us who are regular players of those routes. At least when I get to Benin, from Benin to Warri, from Warri to Mbiama, we know this area. Some people just stay back somewhere and read them. You see, I pray if that road was there, probably my late uncle who made me who I am will have survived.
Do you think the average Nigerian would actually appreciate the challenges of the Niger Delta if we all, in our own little spaces, actually made it a tourism thing to actually go there, you know, including the politicians themselves, who
exactly.
you may just be talking over their heads, you know, when you're talking about the
So,
challenges of the Niger Delta.
Like I just said, some of us just watch on telly and read the papers. They don't visit. When you go there, you will now know the quantum of problem that is there. And that's why we should really appreciate the youths who I condemn violent though, but they've been able to put it at a point where some of the things you see happen here don't happen in those areas.
Okay, Bristol, let me bring you in here. Bristol, the agitation has been very tense over the times and all of that. With this negotiation, we're looking forward to lasting peace in the Niger Delta. But if you, like, we reeled out some figures now, budget of NDDC over the years. That's just NDDC. The Ministry of Niger Delta is there, 13 billion, 13% derivation is there, allocation to state governments are there, and all of that. But the true question here is, we have not really seen, like you mentioned earlier on, there are some elders or there are some elements or politicians from the Niger Delta who are benefiting from the status quo as it is. But the youths who are the stakeholders, like you said earlier on, we don't see them asking questions directly at these leaders or at these elders who are supposed to be or who have been getting these monies, as it were.
You know, just like typical Africans, we have respect for our institutions and our elders. So that is why it seems as if that we've not asked questions. But with the agitation is a form of a reaction to the neglect or negligence of some elders of the region and also the government. You know, just as in life, just as in business, in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you clearly negotiate for. So, these agencies of the government, we ask ourselves again, how are they appointed? The people from the region never appointed them. These are stooges, these are surrogates of some highly placed politicians in Abuja and across this country. So, we expect that they must definitely do the bidding of their masters. How many of these agencies have you seen individuals voluntarily resign? They don't resign because they don't have any job. The people that operate these agencies, the managers, they don't resign because they see that as a form of compensation or empowerment. So even in government, there are certain bureaucratic bottlenecks. Before these budgets are passed, you need to go to the National Assembly to lobby. And before they even approve your budget, you must clearly state to them certain chunk of projects you must give to them. They will nominate companies that this project's contract will be awarded to, and you pay them sometimes upfront. And nothing has been done. EFCC has not even investigated till date these agencies, how they have mismanaged or managed these resources. So one thing this government must do, because one thing, as Mr. President sits today, anything that goes wrong or right, he bears the burden. So he should ensure that in as much as today he bears the brunt, he receives all the abuses, accusation, he must ensure the people that will man these agencies must be credible. They must not bring in politicians. They should bring in technocrats. And as a people, what we need most is even restructuring of this country. Because as Nigerians, we have not sat together and discussed and agreed as a people on how we should live.
Your point is very, very well taken, and clearly so too. Bristol and Lagbaria Emmanuel, thank you so much, of the Ijaw Youth Council. Chris Akio, what are the guarantees that this 16-point plus 5 agenda would actually be implemented? Or if you had, a say in it, what would be the major things that this government should put in place as quickly as possible?
I start answering what you've raised, we need to correct an impression about the figures you've churned out on TV.
Okay.
That is a clear blackmail by the government against the people of the Niger Delta. I say this because I know that the federal government is owing the NDDC alone on the appropriated funds over 1 trillion naira. So you see, every year they roll out figures, 260 billion. They probably don't even pay 40 billion of that sum to the commission. And then the commission has to go cap in hand between Port Harcourt and SGF office to agree on what should be done. That is the only commission that is called Niger Delta Development Commission that has representative in the north, in the east, in the west, all on the board. Otherwise, it is not functional. In fact, there was a case where the MD was given a query. Why don't you have a Zamframan on the represented in NDDC? But look at the Northeast Commission. I can assure you that when it starts running, there will be nobody from Niger Delta that will have an inroad there. And then look at how the funding has been skewed. 3% of our national VAT, that is bigger than 13% derivation that everybody is shouting about. 3% of the VAT of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is bigger than any 13% derivation. It is going to be done for 10 years and maybe reviewed again for another 10 years. And this was passed in 6 months. So if you look at the way governance is run, there is an attempt to perpetually make the Niger Delta people not succeed. Now, you can't have an NDDC that cannot do anything. This MD that is going to be handed over today was asked to pay contracts and do nothing. The whole budget of this year is gone. No one project has been awarded from NDDC, but there's a budget, 200 and something billion. Let us paint it with the scenario of Nigeria.
So looking forward. Looking forward, very quickly.
Hold on, 1 minute. Nigeria has a 6 trillion budget. We are hungry. There's recession. Are you saying that the present government has dispensed 6 trillion and we are still hungry? Budgets are just estimates. The cash backup is what makes it a reality. NDDC and Niger Delta Ministry have never gotten their fair share in terms of cash backup for their budget over the years. And that's where you find the gap in development.
Okay, all right, we'll have to say thank you so much, Chris Akiyo.
We don't have all the time anymore, but we thank you for joining us on the program. Thank you so much. We look forward to a time we can talk more on this. Now, Gomorai, at this time where we have economic challenges as a nation, how feasible would it be to implement this 16+5 agenda?
That's why it's a negotiation. You look at the issues and then take by scale of preference.
That's what I wanted to find out from the
Nothing wrong in relocating. I don't want to mention names, so I don't know what the Chevron
and all the rest of them.
Yeah, all of them back there. At least that's one. It will create business opportunity for the people. Then the issue of security. You see, the boys are angry. And the only way is when you see a soldier, they have to be humane to us and give us some respect. They're treated like second-class citizens, like refugees. No, these are the things. Respect.
Okay.
Respect.
Okay.
All right, President Ogomorai, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is